John, we have a very timely guest, and for us, somebody we actually like a great deal from our days covering him and since, and that's Darryl Strawberry, who's getting his number retired Saturday by the Mets.
Yes, really looking forward to this. One of our all-time favorites. What a life for Darryl Strawberry. Overcome so much. Again, recently had a heart attack. He's overcome that, cancer, addiction, and I mean, obviously, he was a hero for both teams on both sides of town. It's mostly about the Mets now, right? I mean, he's getting his number retired, and we're going to talk a lot of Mets today.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're going to talk about all that, the down times, the up times. We'll even sneak in the Yankees. Maybe Joel will ask a tough question about if you take the 98 Yankees or the 86 Mets. And Straw was a member of both. Who knows what I'll do when I get him, John. You and I will also talk about the current Mets and Yankees through Memorial Day, 1/3 of the season. We'll play hit and error at the end. Maybe we'll mention an umpire. That's if you stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman. John, it happens. The fastest transition in the sport is from 1/4 of a season to 1/3 of a season. We go from 40 to 54 in 2 weeks. And we're at Memorial Day. It's the traditional moment where we kind of begin to reflect on what have we seen for the first 2 months? Who do we think is really in it? Buyers, sellers, who might be available, etc. And look, one of the biggest stories in the sport is the Yankees have the best record in the American League at Memorial Day. They're 37-18. And what I wrote about this for our online element at the New York Post. Think about where we were, GM meetings, winter meetings, where Brian Cashman and Hal Steinbrenner are being besieged by, in their own words, one called it a disaster and one called 2023 awful, and the need to change. And just one of the big things is they made 3 big moves in the offseason. They did Soto, Stroman, and Verdugo. That would be what? A++, A+, and A if you were giving out grades for those 3 moves. Pretty much everything has worked. John, what do you think about the club?
Well, I guess last year was a disaster, and that's the good news, right? If 82-80 is a disaster, and they said it, they believed it, and it was correct. They've done a great job. I mean, Soto is an A+++++. I think he's the league MVP. Might even be Judge after his awful April. If you look at the stats, people would say it's probably Judge, but I mean, Soto's been consistent beginning to the end. So if we looked at the season, it's probably Soto. Make a case for either one. You got 2 MVPs on a team, and you've got that pitching staff that's been amazing. I mean, that starting staff, all 5 of them have been great. And I'm not just saying that. They have the best pitching in the league, the best ERA, the best starting pitching. One of our frequent, I'm not saying because he's a guest, Matt Blake, he's done an incredible job as the pitching coach. This is without Garrett Cole. They're missing the best pitcher in baseball. And they have the best rotation and the best pitching without him. Incredible.
Yeah. Look, I think the answer is to your first question is Soto because he's been transformative. He's changed a lineup. It's brought in a lefty hitter that they needed so badly. And it just feels like the whole lineup flows so much better because he's in it. He's unflappable. He's good off lefties. He's good in the clutch, etc. Just to put a finer point on the Cole thing, because I've been kind of tracking it all year. It's amazing. So now a third of the way through the season, Garrett Cole won the Cy Young last year with a 2.63 ERA. The entire Cole-less rotation has a 2.72. He had a 2.06 batting average against. This group has a 2.11. He averaged 9.6 strikeouts per 9. This one is averaging 9.1. They've essentially been Garrett Cole as a 5-man unit without Garrett Cole. I don't think it's sustainable, right? Because it means pitching like a singular Cy Young as 5 guys all year. But to me, value is when you do things, not just how you do things. And what Luis Gil has done filling in for Cole and the 4 veterans have done around him, and I guess I'm calling Clark Schmidt a veteran here at this point, has been more than Soto and Judge.
Yeah.
That they did not collapse with what I think on mid-March when he went down, we would have called the most indispensable player on the team being hurt. And that player has not pitched an inning, and the rest of the 5 guys have pitched like Garrett Cole.
Well, all 5 have been fantastic. I'm going to touch on a few of them. Clark Schmidt, to me, I thought he looked like an average pitcher. He was very confident. He was always very confident. And for a good reason, it turns out. The guy's a great starting pitcher at this point. He's been awesome. Luis Heel, we barely heard about him until the end of spring training. He has been amazing. That was, I think, a trade with the Twins. So
Or
good
Jake
job
Cave.
for Cashman. Did a
Yeah.
great job. We're not hearing any calls for Cashman to lose his job. That's good. I mean, the guy's never had a losing season, so I never quite got that. But I mean, look at the job that he has done now. And Rodon, I think people thought of him as maybe not right for New York. You know, a guy with a terrible first year, and I mean, he didn't look right for New York in that first year, right? I mean, he didn't have a good year. I mean, you know, that's on him. He wasn't prepared. He did everything he could. He got to spring training early, lost weight, he picked up new pitches. And, you know, he's maybe not quite what he was that last year in San Francisco, but he's pretty darn good as well. They've all pulled it together. And I mean, there isn't even a close team that for this rotation. It has been the best in baseball, and it's not even a competition.
Yeah, and again, just to frame it, John, we thought, wow, it was devastating when they missed out on Yamamoto, who was 1A to Soto this offseason. Their plan was Soto, Yama Soto, right? That's what they wanted, those two guys. Then when Cole goes down, it's like you got to trade for Dylan Cease. You got to sign Snell. You got to sign Montgomery. They do none of it. And Luis Heel steps in. John, he's like another Luis who they tried to get a couple of years ago. He reminds me a lot of Castillo. It's fastball, changeup they're both well above average pitches. His strike throwing is considerably better than it was in the past when the Twins thought he would never throw enough strikes or have enough pitch. He didn't have a changeup. He didn't throw strikes. They thought he was a reliever when they traded him for Jake Cave. Again, we might talk about the best moves in 25 plus years for Brian Cashman. I mean, Luis Heel is on the short list of guys who go win a Cy Young this year. And now you wonder, is he in the rotation all year when Cole comes back? It's just been remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing about Yamamoto, he's been good. I mean, he's been really good, but it was $376 million, right?
Yes.
I mean, you almost think it's a good thing they didn't get him, because what would they have done? We saw Hal Steinbrenner's comments, right? If they had him, would they have a chance to bring Soto back? You know, I mean, at this point, I think people are concerned based on the comments whether they bring him back. If you had that 376 million spent already, I mean, that's a nice head start on bringing Soto back. And that's, you know, I think at this point, the Yankees are favorites to bring him back. He looks like he's having a great time. I know it's all about the money, but, you know, why wouldn't a guy want to stay a Yankee, right? So I think they'd probably bring him back as we sit here today on Memorial Day, this past Memorial Day. But if you had Yamamoto, you had those comments, you put that 2 and 2 together, you know, it feels like Soto might be a one-time Yankee.
Yeah. We probably need a longer time to go into Hal's motivations for saying what he's saying. I do think no matter what, they're going to do everything they can to re-sign Soto. I think they'll, you know, like
they love him. That's clear. They love him, right?
You know, money will come off. You know, no, I assume Gleyber Torres won't be brought back. I assume Clay Holmes won't be brought back. You know, it will open up some financial ways. And by the way, you know, Robbie Ray was traded in the offseason as a hurt pitcher with a lot of years left. If Carlos Rodon has this kind of year, he becomes probably a tradable player if they want to open that kind of salary slot, and they think that the other four guys plus Cole moving forward could be the rotation. So I think they'll have some ability to move, you know, create finances in the offseason, understanding what Soto means to today's team and the brand and winning.
Yeah. I think you're right about all that. I really don't see why the Yankees need to clear payroll space. They are the Yankees. They don't open the books. I mean, they're basically close to sell out almost every game. A Tuesday, it's cold. They're selling out. The Mets are like down. Their attendance is down more than any team in baseball. Yankees last year during a disaster, they were close to selling out all those games. So financially, they're doing incredible. I believe they can afford him. They probably could have afforded him even they got Yamamoto. Now to me, clearing, you know, a second. Gleyber Torres is a nice player. Holmes, these are nice players. We're talking about a guy who's going to probably get $600 million at this point, right? You really have to clear $20 million or $30 million to get him, to keep him. I hope that Yankees don't need to do that, but
I I was
Yeah.
just following along, trying to play with Hal Steinbrenner. Like
Yeah.
like I might think they should have a $350 million payroll, but if the guy with the $300 million payroll says it has to come down,
I
I'm going to
understand.
start doing the math about how,
I'm
like,
sure he
just,
feels that way now, but when it comes to the negotiation, it's going
I
to be
think they're
tough.
going to, I
It'll
think
be
they'll do
tough not
everything
to
they
bring him back.
can to
Yeah,
re-sign him. You
absolutely.
mentioned the Mets payroll. Why don't we kind of finish out our segment here by talking about the other team in New York who at Memorial Day was 22-30 after a rain out against the Dodgers. They played a doubleheader as we're speaking today. John, they're 8 under 500. To me, they have the bones of the Giants or the Diamondbacks or, any of these teams that are about 500, yet they're 8 under. And I think it's a hard pathway for them to get back. And here's why. They're 17th in runs per game. They're 7th in runs against, which is good, but their bullpen seems fried by Memorial Day because they've been in it so much. They're 29th in defensive runs saved. Usually to win 8 out of 10, 10 out of 13, 13 out of 18, to kind of get back where you need to be able to look at something and say, like the Yankees rotation or the Yankees lineup, or the Yankees are this because they're good at everything. The Mets are not particularly special enough at anything. I wonder how they run off the thing to kind of get back to life here.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about baseball is it's not predictable. I still think now, of course, I predicted they would make the playoffs. Was that a week ago? It was about 7 losses ago. It doesn't look very smart right now.
You put the curse on them.
That's what people are telling me. I hope I don't have that kind of power. I still think this is at least an average team and should be. I'm not putting this on the manager that they've underperformed. I do believe that they've underperformed. I agree with you. They should be there with the Padres and the Giants and the other average teams in the league. They should not be 8 under. They've been a little bit unlucky. I'm a little shocked that the defense hasn't been good. I mean, Bader is a good center fielder. They moved to center fielder to left field. That should be good. I thought Beatty, well, he didn't hit like we expected. He played a good third. They have a good shortstop. I really, I don't get it. I mean, obviously losing Alvarez hurt their offense a ton, right? They're getting nothing out of catcher. That hurts them. They've lost their ace. That certainly hurts anybody. I do think they have pitching depth. I am worried about the bullpen like you. You've got Drew Smith with an injury. You've got Raley. Doesn't look like he's coming back this year. You worry about Diaz. There certainly are more worries than things to get excited about at the moment, but baseball is a funny game. They certainly should have more talent than this. They're certainly going to give it a try, but at this point, it doesn't look good, but it should be better. This should be. Don't you agree? This should be a 500 team, right? This should be at least a 500 team.
Yeah, that's why I said I think they should be in that kind of mix with the Giants, etc. And I think this basically falls to David Stearns came in and inherited a bunch of moneyed players. And these guys haven't played well. Diaz hasn't played well. Marte hasn't played well. Lindor hasn't played well. McNeil hasn't played well. Nimmo's been okay, but the batting average is way down. The strikeouts are way up. So it's kind of like the lowest end of okay for him. Those were the guys who got money in the flushed early days of the Cohn administration when he was trying to paper over, stay competitive. They haven't played well. Just to make the point, I looked at it this morning. I had a hunch it was going to be this. WAR is not an be-all, end-all. But if you looked at Baseball Reference WAR, the highest Met in it is 83rd, is Bader. Next is Lindor at 114. Next is Nimmo at 141. We're talking about 3 players in the top 150, none in the top 80. Pitching, Manaea 55th, Budo 79, Severino 81st, Lopez 98. Like, the good news is David Stern brought in Bader. He's leading them in WAR. He brought in Manaea. He's leading them in WAR. Severino's doing well. Lopez doing well. But those guys were supposed to be kind of the chorus to that core that he inherited of Lindor, Nimmo, Alonso, McNeil, Marte, Diaz, Senga. And they've gotten so little from those guys. And John, to me, they cannot burst back towards 500 and into the race unless most, if not all of those guys play a lot better than they did for the first third of the season.
Well, they're going to need Lindor to be a star. He got a $341 million deal. Alonso should be a star, right? McNeil should be much better than this. You're absolutely right. The guys that he inherited, they're all underperforming, basically. I mean, I think Nimmo's done better than his batting average suggests, but the rest of them have underperformed. I hear people criticizing David Stern, small market GM. You know what? His moves have been good, right? Severino for 1 year, $13 million.
Manaea
Manaea, you know what? I'll say one thing about the Mets: if they do trade these guys, they'll get something for them. Right? The guys that he acquired, they will get Manaea. They will get something for Severino. Bader's been solid, right? He's outstanding defensively. He's their most clutch hitter. You know, I do think the injuries have hurt. Senga certainly. Francisco Alvarez is hurt, but I am surprised that they are 8 games under and deserve it at this point. I mean, how can that defense be bad? How can they have a bad defense? I mean, you lose Alvarez, you still have Nito and Narvaez. They're professional catchers, right?
Narvaez has been
good
bad.
Shortstop. Yeah, I mean, he's been bad on both ends of it. Beatty's actually was good at third. They have good defensive players. How could they be 29th in defense? Something's going wrong.
Yeah. It hasn't been good, and I assume Narvaez, when Alvarez gets back, I think they're going to keep Nito. Like, I think they probably should keep Nito. He's outperformed Narvaez. Look, John, if our listeners stick with us, we'll probably be talking about better times with the Mets and a lot more, because Darryl Strawberry joins us next on the show. John and I are so happy to have Darryl Strawberry join us. Darryl, I could go on for a while, you know, 8-time All-Star, Rookie of the Year, 30-30, all-time leading home run hitter for the Mets. But let's not bury the lead. On Saturday, number 18 is being retired at Citi Field. So congratulations on that. And I do want to start in an obvious place. Unfortunately, I think it was a day before your birthday in March, your 62nd birthday. You had a heart attack. Fans are going to come out in droves to see you Saturday because they love you. They want to know how you're doing. John and I want to know how you're doing. Give us an update on how you're doing and feeling.
Well, first, guys, thanks for having me. And I really appreciate you asking that question. Yeah, of course, you know, having a heart attack is real. Being in great shape and traveling the country and doing ministry, you never think of yourself having a heart attack running through airports. And I did for 5 days. And by the time I got into the emergency room and the doctor was there to do that procedure for me, he was saying that my heart was at 40% pumping blood. So, you know, I was in trouble, not knowing that I was in trouble. And I just knock on wood and thank God that, you know, my wife is paying more attention to me than I do, more detail to us and our health as we get older. And you got to realize we're getting older. You know, I'm 62. I'm not 25. I'm not a young kid anymore. I'm just running around and thinking you could do everything. So I have to learn to balance my life. I'm just so thankful that I'm here for this day. Thankful that I'm here for the fans. Thanks to Steve and Alex for them selecting me to have my number retired and be a part of such a historical day, not only for me, but for the fans. You know, I need to have closure with the fans, I think, more than anything, because I love the fans, and the fans were great to me in my years of playing in Queens. So I'm feeling well. I'm excited. People say, are you a little nervous about it? I don't really think I'm real nervous about it. I think I'm happy. I'm happy for this organization because this organization is my home. And I just need to say that because people need to understand that this is clearly my home. This is where my career started. This is where my minor league career was. This is where every opportunity came for me to be successful at the big leagues. And I'm forever grateful for that. And I'm grateful for my health, but I'm grateful for all the great things that are about to take place.
Raw, thank you so much for joining us. We always talk about our favorite guests here. You're one of our favorite people. I'll never forget you're the one guy who noticed I was absent for about 6 weeks in 1996. Said, where you been, man? And I really appreciate that. You're just a genuinely nice guy. Tell us, why do you feel you need to have closure with the Mets fans?
Well, because the fans were always great to me in those times of playing there. And, you know, even the roller coaster ride you have with fans sometimes, it's good for you. They made me the player I was. They pushed me into my destiny. And I think a lot of times players don't understand the importance of that relationship with fans and letting fans have their way and the way they feel about you when you don't play well. And I appreciated that more than anything, the way they were towards me when I didn't play well. They saying, come on, you suck, you better than that. They just not yelling at you just to be yelling at you. You know, they're yelling at you because you're good and they want you to perform that way. New York fans have great knowledge of sports. Met fans are incredible. I don't think the younger players understand how incredible those fans really are to play in front of. You know, if you embrace them, they will embrace you back, and they will give it to you. But it's a good gift to you to get, you know, it's that kick that they give you. You know, that's what I always looked at it. It was that charge I needed. You know, I may be going through it, slumping, and they, you know, stand over the dugout and yell at you and say, "What's wrong with you?" You know, and this and that, and they were right. What is wrong with you? You know, you got a job to do out there, and I love that. It was just. It was a great relationship I had with the fans. It was never about me leaving because of the fans. There's nothing like playing at Shea Stadium and running around the base after hitting a big home run and getting that curtain call and having those people on their feet, standing on their feet, calling you to come out. It's nothing like that. That's the most incredible feeling I've ever experienced playing in New York.
Sure. Why don't we stay there? Look, it was obviously a tumultuous time in New York for the Mets and also in your personal life back then. When I'll use a word like regret. What are the regrets from that period of time? Clearly, not being able to stay a Met seems to be with you even now. What are the regrets from the period for someone who could look back at 62 now?
And the regrets are the relationship, a broken relationship with the front office. When you break that trust and that relationship and nothing's there, and when you become a free agent, they tell you go have a good year, and you go have a good year, and then they offer you a 2-year deal. You know, it's like a slap in the face. You know, it's like, okay, it's time to go. That means right there that this is over. You know, and it had, like I said, it had nothing to do with the fans. It had to do with the front office and dealing, and that's what you look back on. When I look back on that, I wish we could have, you know, went down a better line together as a having a team, agent, ownership, general manager, because I love Frank. You know, Frank Castle was great. Frank built a great team. He built a great thing there for us, and let's not deny that. He put all that together. He orchestrated that for us, and we were good because of his doing, him putting pieces together and bringing the right guys in, the right guys that could fit and play in New York. Because New York is a hard place to play. It's not a place where you just walk and say, well, I want to play here, and you have a couple good years, and then all of a sudden you can't play there anymore. That wasn't the case for me. You know, after my rookie season, I took off and went into a whole different direction of playing at a higher level. And of course, are you going to have a bad season at some point in time? Yeah, I had one of those before, but I bounced back and came in my free agent year and had that big year. And it was, you know, it was time to come to the table and negotiate a deal. And we didn't. And that broke my heart, you know, because I left my heart and my sleeves on that New York field. That was Shea Stadium was my home. You know, I love playing at Shea Stadium. I love hitting home runs at Shea Stadium. And I got so accustomed to that. And you miss that. I don't care where you go. You can go to China and play. You will miss that type of atmosphere because you're so used to it. And I was so accustomed to running on that field and hearing fans cheer and stand up and clap. And that was something that I regret for a very long time in my life.
You know, I didn't even realize that's all they offered you was a 2-year deal. You personally can't really have regret. Let me just follow up. You can't really regret not taking that, right? I mean, you went back to your hometown team and got a 5-year deal with the Dodgers. You must have been excited to go home at that time, I guess, or were you sad right away that I wanted to be in New York right here and we just couldn't work it out?
I was sad at the fact that we couldn't come to agreement. I was sad at the fact that we waited so long to come to that place after being there for so many years and having such great success there. When you have a track record there, I think, you know, you look at that and you say, well, I should be able to be a part of this. And, you know, it was a sad point to get into that free agent season, that 1990 season. I knew I was going to have a good year. And I just kept looking up in the press box every time I hit on runs and say, you know, right about this. You know, this is going to be a fun year. You know, it wasn't cocky. You know, I learned to play that way because of the guys I played with. The guys I played with were very confident guys. Keith was a great leader. Gary was a great leader. Ray Knight was a great leader. Mookie was a great leader. I got a chance to play with some guys that were older and got a chance to really understand what it's like to play at the highest level and be successful and be confident in yourself. And then when you get to that point of a free agency year, there's nothing on the table for you, and you just decide, well, it's time to go. I mean, it just completely broke my heart to leave the Mets, no question about it, because I'm a homegrown player and I grew up in that organization with so many of those young guys, myself, Lenny, Doc was behind me, Kevin Mitchell, all these guys came up, Jeffries, Elster, just so many young guys that came through the organization that was really good. And I just happened to be a part of that youth movement that came through the organization. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud of what the organization was like when I came up. And then when the other guys came behind me, they were good enough to play at the major league level too.
Sure. You mentioned a bunch of the names of the guys you played with in that era. There's two magic teams in the 60-plus year history of the Mets, the 69 champion and the 86 champion. I say 1986 Mets. Go with it. What first comes to your mind about the team?
That was the most craziest fun team I ever played with. I mean, you're talking about a bunch of guys that truly loved each other. That was the 86 Mets, and it was a team you just didn't want to mess with. We had lost in 85, won 98 games against the Cardinals, and I just knew we were sad inside. And I just knew in our hearts we were never going to let anybody beat us like that again. We just felt like that. We just felt like we just had to come back that next year and put it all together. And I think the most important thing about that team was not just the players, but it was the manager and the coaches. They were awesome. Mel Stoudemire, Davey, Bill Robinson, you go down the list, Buddy Harrison. I mean, our coaches was awesome. They were fighters. They knew it was our time to win, and they helped us get there. They helped us prepare for that. When we got into spring training that year, our first team meeting, Davey just said, I ain't got a lot to say, but he just said, we're going to win it all. And he said, we're going to dominate. And we just kind of all looked around to ourselves and we thought, yeah, that's right. We're going to dominate this year. And I remember we didn't get off to a good start, and everybody was writing about us like, yeah, they're going to really dominate. They 2-5. And boy, when we got going, man, nobody had anything else to say, because once we got going, man, the chemistry of our team was a tight-knit team, and you couldn't get in there because we were going to hurt you. We were going to fight. We were going to protect each other. And it was just a part of our DNA of who we were. We were no doubt about it. Crazy as ever. And that's what I loved about it, because our fans loved the fact how crazy and the passion that we had for each other, and that we would pick each other up. Now, when we needed to pick each other up from an at-bat or something like that, we would pick each other up. The next guy would do it and get it done. So that's what team chemistry is all about. That's the importance of playing in New York. And because what people fail to realize, there's a lot of noise going on inside of New York when you're playing there, but you can't let the noise in. You can hear it, but you can't let it into your team. And I think that's what we did really good that year. We didn't let it into our team, and we went after it, and we got it.
That team and those teams knew how to work, and they knew how to focus, and you were clutch and all that. But I want to ask about how fun it was too, because you look like you were having a lot of fun. Even during the games. So tell us some stories about how, or if you can think of any, how much fun it was. I mean, the team worked. I mean, clearly, you can't win 2/3 of the games without working, but it looked like it was having a lot of fun too.
Well, at that time, I'll probably say it was too much fun, but it was fun. It was just who we were. We knew we were going into town, and we knew we were hated. We were like a, rock band coming into town. And we get in there late at night, and we all crazy on the bus, and we just like, what we gonna do? We was like, we're gonna drink the alcohol, we're gonna whoop their ass, we're gonna screw their girls. We were just like really crazy. I mean, I'm saying this here, now, but we were really, really crazy. Crazy good, and that's what made us gel together, because it wasn't like we were pushing guys out. We kept all our guys in, even though other guys didn't have the same personality, like Carter and Mookie Wilson. They were really solid, wholesome guys, and I respect them for that. And I want to thank them. I'm going to thank them in my speech, because they played a big role in my life of me getting to where I'm at today, or watching them. And then we had this other group of guys that we were all like a bunch of wild animals, just ready to, let us loose, but we had fun together and we protected each other. One thing I love about that is we protected each other. If we're out and we're together and you mess with one of us, you're gonna have to get all of us, and that's what I respect more than anything with this group of players. I've played on some really good teams, but I never played with a bunch of guys like this that had each other back when it came down to anything, altercation and anything, because you're going to have that sometime, being a big stars like we were playing in New York and everybody was hating us at the time. And, because of the curtain calls and, our home run trots and stuff like that, we knew we were going to experience that with fans and everything, everywhere else we went. And we made people pay a price. And that's when I look back on it, it's like, man, that was real. That was so real. Ray Knight was tough as ever. He was always a fighter. Kevin Mitchell, I remember we was in a fight in Pittsburgh. He had some kid in the headlock like he was going to kill him. It's just like all the different things, with this group of guys. It was personal. It was personal to us, but the love and the bond that I have for those guys will be forever.
Sure. One of the things we look back with that group is you won, again, one of the most iconic championships in history in '86. But there's always this feeling that a lot was left on the table, that the team in that 4, 5, 6-year period could have and maybe should have done more. What do you think? Did it leave a lot on the table?
We left a lot on the table. The team was great for many years. Every year we had a chance. And I always tell people, you just go look back at the season of each team that I was on for those 8 years, 7 years, because the first year was a bad year. But those other years, we had a chance to win the division, and we would lose by 1 or 2 games. I never finished no lower than second, when I played in those 7 years with those ball clubs. And that speaks a lot because we didn't have any wild card or anything like that. You had to win. And, yeah, we left something on the table. We let 88 slip away, 88 got away from us in that series against the Dodgers, and that was our chance to redeem ourselves from the '87 season. But you got to remember, in '87 we lost our rotation. Mostly everybody in the rotation got hurt at some point in time, and when you lose your rotation like that, it's hard to really duplicate what you had done the year before, because we had some really good pitchers that we needed. And when those guys went down in '87, then that '88 season came, and then we lost that. '88 was the biggest heartbreak. I must have cried so hard, man. That flight back home to New York, man, it was nothing like the flight back home from Houston. It was completely quiet because there was a team there that knew that window was starting to close, and the window only stays open for so long for winning. And after that '88 series, we was going, Keith and Carter was probably going to be, getting a little older and moving on from us, and they were 2 big centerpieces of what we were all about, how we were always getting over the hump, because of guys like that we had were veteran players, and we were going to have a new group come in, and we were going to have to carry that load. And I didn't know if they can carry that load like those guys, because those guys there that I had played with before, we've been through some real battles, and we knew how to battle and get through them.
Well, this week is all about the Mets. You're going to be honored, deservedly so, on Saturday, and it's going to be a full house. Everybody's going to come out to honor you for your Mets career. But you know what? You had some great Yankee years, too. So I want to ask you what your remembrances are about your time with the Yankees. A lot of clutch home runs, big home runs. That's what I remember. What do you remember?
It's just the same thing. Baseball is not just about one player and one player being successful. You're only as good as the players around you, and I think that's important for people to understand and fans to be able to understand. I've never been great by myself. I was great because of other guys what other guys did in front of me. Guys got on base and to make things happen, to put you in situations to produce. Yes, you have to produce. That's part of our job, and we understand that. But I know playing for those guys over there, Joe Torre and the boss, and Stick, Gene Michaels, and all those wonderful people, that Yankee organization was top to top the best organization I ever played for. I never played for an organization with people who cared about people, not just being a player, but cared about people, but they also cared about winning, and they knew how to do it. And that's something that a lot of people can learn from. If they're very patient to understand, people that come from a Yankee organization knows how to win. And if you can learn from that, you can become just what they are, because that's what they do. They bring people and they put people together and they make their people fit, and they put their manager and their coaches and, all the different people that I played with. And all those guys over there that I played with, Jeet, Mo, Posada, Bernie, Tino, O'Neill, Cone, Wells, man, all those people were big time gamers, just like the early Met players. They were just the 90 version of what the 86 Mets were. They were gamer. They came to play. I remember Mario Duncan, when I first came there, we were playing that year, 96. He used to say, we play today, we win today. And it was just a crazy thing that, to be able to have that kind of personality and swagger about yourself. And I love those guys forever, man. Those guys I played with over there in the Bronx. No question about it. They're a big family to me, just as well as the family in Queens. But the family in Queens is my history, my true history of what baseball was all about. Those are my greatest years I've ever had playing over in Queens.
Straw, let me throw a bouquet at you. I thought on those great Yankee teams that you and Chili Davis and Tim Raines, you were a little past your greatness, but I thought all three guys brought a wisdom to the team that was really important, especially to a young Derek Jeter. I think you were all influential to him. But you just mentioned something about the toughness of that team, and you compared it to the 86 team. So I'm going to do it, Straw. I'm going to put you on the spot. It's the 1998 Yankees versus the 1986 Mets in a 7-game series. Who do you got?
Well, I'm going to ask you guys this. Who do you think has the best pitching staff?
Oh, that's a good one. I think because of Rivera at the end, the Yankees have the better staff. They have if they get the lead, they're going to win. But you played on both teams. You're middle lineup for both teams. Who wins, the young Darryl Strawberry or the older Darryl Strawberry?
The younger Darryl Strawberry win. You think about Jesse Orosco. Orosco was a great closer. Yep. I mean, he didn't blow games for us. He closed great games out for us. We depend on him in a lot of big games. Of course, Mo was different. He's a different maker for any team. No, you ain't gonna never see another that. So it'd be a long time before someone come along and be able to do what he did as a closer. But you match up from positions. You look at who's who and what's what. I think we at the top in catching. I think we, the top of first baseman. We give them Jeter. Jeter's a shortstop, of course, over Elster. Who they had third base. Your third base was Brocious. Ray Knight was the third base. Ray was tough. Ray had a great year that year, man. Ray was so clutch that year in '86 and big hits and stuff like that. Just overall, I think it's a great matchup. I don't really know, and I always get asked that question about who would win. I know the '86 Mets would win the fight. I know that for sure.
I'd like to be there for Gooden and El Duque in Game 7. That would have been good.
Yeah, that would have been a great matchup right there. I mean, it was great, but we had great pitching. You got to remember, Ronnie was great. El Cid was phenomenal. Bobby Ojeda was phenomenal. And your Doc was great. It's just it was the same on the other end too with the Yankee pitching staff. We had a great rotation. Bernie was great, Chino, all these guys. Brocious was great. Brocious was a sleeper that had a year that nobody would ever think about, quietly hitting ninth. And I love Brocious because he was just such a class act person, calm, didn't say a whole lot, didn't have to boast about himself, and he just went out and he just performed. So, that matchup would be a great matchup. It's never going to happen. But I know people always
in our minds. We get to have it in our minds.
People always look at that, but you think about those teams, and I just think about Jeet. I mean, I love Jeet, how Jeet was. Jeet, he was just a class act. He just reminds me so much of Gary Carter as a teammate. Just a complete class act that just never said anything negative or wrong about anybody, and he was a star. And he goes on to be a Hall of Famer just like Gary. And they were the same way. They carried themselves and conducted themselves as real leaders.
That was a very diplomatic answer. It's a tough question. I knew you were going to talk a lot about the Mets. The Mets team, I think, had more fun, and you were in your prime. So I certainly understand why you reading between the lines. I got the Mets a little bit there, but anyway, that was maybe my reading of it. I want to ask you about you personally. I know that you've been through a lot in your life, certainly with cancer, the recurrence of cancer. I mean, this is 20 years ago, so you are considered cured now. I had recalled at one point you had stopped taking chemo. You were down. Tell us about how you're doing now. It seems like you're doing great now. You're on the mend in terms of your heart situation, how you're doing now. And was it as rough as it's been written about and portrayed about?
Oh yeah, I mean it was definitely rough. There's no question about it. Addiction. Ended up in the Florida State Prison with a T-17169 because of addiction, and ended up with cancer twice, losing my left kidney in the second surgery. And you'd be thinking, oh, what's next? and then experiencing a heart attack not too long ago. It's I'm thankful for it. I'm thankful for it because it gets me closer to my purpose every time something happens to me. It keeps me focused on the journey that I'm on, to stay on the right track and don't reverse and go back just because things happen. It's a great example and a great testament and a testimony to God, of persevering and not sitting in a place where a lot of times when things do happen to us, we want to call ourselves a victim. I'm not a victim, I'm an overcomer. I tell people all the time, don't look at me as a victim. I'm clearly an overcomer because everybody makes their own personal decisions and choices. And when you make those bad choices, there are consequences behind those. And I'm not talking about the health-wise, I'm talking about the lifestyle of what the consequences that I had to face from my mistakes and my shortcomings. And there's no excuses. My mother was a wonderful woman. She raised me right. Okay. Yeah, I did come from a broken home, but her being the kind of mother she was, and I saw the example and how she lived, she raised me right. I made a choice to go out there and live a lifestyle and all of that stuff. So guess what? You pay a price for it. But do you get up or do you stay there? And I think the most important thing was for me was to get up. And I didn't get up by myself. I got up because of my wife. My wife is the key to all of this. She will be sitting on that field with me, and I will be honoring her too, because she is the key to pulling me into the place of getting my life in order. And I'm forever thankful for that. I used to tell people all the time, I was out there living a life, being a womanizer and doing all these things. And I always say, well, God has a great sense of humor. He used two women to straighten me out. My mother praying for me and my wife, Tracy, leading me back into my faith. And it would lead me into a destiny that I could never imagine as I sit here today and be the man. Every man needs a good woman by his side. And when you do have that for yourself, it brings you the balance that you need. Because a lot of times, our egos can get us in a lot of trouble, make us believe that, we got it going on and we can do it all by ourselves. And most of the time, we really can't. We need that helpmate. And I ended up, I'm very fortunate. A lot of guys are probably bitter in their life that play sports, don't have a wife at home now, and don't have that helpmate to help them navigate through life. I have that. I have that to be able to navigate myself through life and the life challenges that I've experienced. And I'm grateful for my wife. She's a beautiful lady. She's a Midwestern girl. I never could imagine me living in St. Louis where they hated us, the Mets. And here it is now. This is the hometown, and the people here, respect me and love me because of the transformation of my life and all I do to help others.
Sure, I think it would be wrong. I was going to ask you about Pete Alonso and what he should do, but I feel it'd be wrong at this point to do anything and step on that end line you just gave us here, which is really a beautiful journey. I love the idea of you probably came into the sport as an overdog and you've become an overcomer. And I think that that's a beautiful journey. And John and I are thrilled that journey is going to include a retirement of your number 18 on Saturday. I hope you and your family have nothing but the greatest day. And John and I thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thanks, Straw. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys, man. I appreciate you guys. Keep up the great work.
Thanks, Straw.
Thanks a lot, Straw.
John and I, of course, thank Darryl Strawberry, who has a great day coming up on Saturday at Citi Field. John, hit or error?
Well, I would call it an error. It's really sad that Ronald Acuna, baseball's going to be without him. The Braves will be without him. You know, the Braves will figure it out. They'll make do. They already had Duvall on the bench. He'll now start. He was a center fielder on a championship team a few years ago, but it's bad for baseball that Ronald Acuna will miss the year a second time with a knee injury that's costing him a season. It's not really an error, but it's certainly a negative, and I think we all feel it in baseball.
No doubt, John. And let's point it out. Really terrific organizations figure out a way. Acuna, when he blew out his other knee, the Braves were behind the Mets that year. DeGrom and Acuna got hurt. The Mets completely fell apart. The Braves won the World Series without their best player, Acuna. I do say I'm a little worried about the Braves because their rotation is thin, and it's based on 40-year-old Charlie Morton. Chris Sale's thrown 150 innings the last 4 years, and a converted reliever in Lopez. They're already without Strider. I think they're a little on the edge, but they're a great organization. I think they'll figure it out.
They'll
on the
figure it out.
opposite of
I'm
great,
not worried. Let's not worry too much about the Braves.
Yes. On the opposite of great, I'll give a hit, I guess, to the news that Angel Hernandez is retiring. Angel never ranked as like the worst umpire in any of the technical stuff. He just had a way of inflicting himself onto the games, making bad calls at the worst times possible, and kind of like the whole arrogance about it. I will say this though, like there's going to be a lot of people who say, great, Angel Hernandez is out, all is good. Hey, Hunter Wentelstadt, CB Buckner, Laz Diaz, watch out. Somebody's got to be the umpire everybody hates. And there's a couple of obvious bullseyes out there.
Yeah, I mean, I promised myself I wasn't going to pile on because I've been so mean to him over the last few years. I'll say this, it's a funny system where you get a lot of money and a buyout when you're really terrible at something. That's weird. It's not only true in umpiring, it's true everywhere. And I will say this about umpiring, it's a well-paying job. There are some perks. It's not easy. I mean, to be criticized daily the way he was on Twitter. I know you don't look at your mentions. He may not look at his mentions. He probably doesn't believe his mentions. He's a pretty confident fellow, but it's not an easy job. I'm not going to say he did it well, but it's a tough job, and he persevered. I'll give him that.
Yeah. I wonder always about the kind of person who thinks like, you know what I'd like to do with my life? Be an umpire. Seems like an interesting, especially since you and I know
you have good eyesight. People have different skills. My eyesight is good enough that I don't need glasses, but it's not that good. And I don't think I'd like to be criticized that much. You don't hear like great job, ump, right? And there are some good jobs. I've seen some good jobs, but have you ever even written great job by the umpire? I don't think it occurs, right?
Right, because they're like offensive linemen. If they're doing a great job, we don't even notice them. Right.
That's true, but they get all pro, whole thing. They get something. The umpires, they get nothing.
Yeah. Well, John, we had something today because we had Darryl Strawberry. We had something today because we were again navigated by our producers. That would be Jake Brown and Tommy Hogan. Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, give us a 5-star rating, drop us a review. The New York Post, a YouTube page, give us a view. We'd love you to join us in that forum as well. John, we're in a lot of forums. We started as newspaper writers, and I hardly ever write in a newspaper anymore. I'm going straight from this to doing our Yankee webcast. I did our online column this morning. Remember newspapers?
You do a lot. You get too much. I'm going to do some newspapering today. I'm going to a doubleheader, so I'm doing.
You're going. I'm there tomorrow for the late afternoon game. Well, we're both still grunting it in our 60s, like Darryl Strawberry is. Our 60s. Anyway, thank you for joining the show. Stick with us. We'll be back next week.